Sophia Walker had always meticulously curated an image of unwavering composure. At 34, her life in the picturesque coastal town of Seabrook seemed to embody perfection, a charming two-story home boasting captivating ocean views, a devoted husband of 7 years, David, and their spirited 3-year-old daughter, Olivia, whose incandescent laughter could dispel the deepest gloom. The salty Pacific breeze, often carrying the sweet perfume of jasmine from her immaculately manicured backyard, felt like a constant affirmation of her flawless existence. David, her high school sweetheart from their Seabrook High days, had built a thriving career in software engineering, while Sophia adeptly managed marketing campaigns from home, effortlessly juggling client calls with Olivia's playdates. Yet, beneath this seemingly idyllic surface, a corrosive secret relentlessly gnawed at Sophia's soul, much like the tireless tide eroding the very shoreline of Seabrook itself. Olivia, with her cascade of curly auburn hair and infectious giggle, was not David's biological child. No casual observer would have ever suspected. Olivia's bright blue eyes, everyone agreed, were uncanny mirrors of David's, and her boundless, playful energy seemed a direct inheritance from his athletic youth. But Sophia held the chilling truth, a truth forged in a fleeting moment of profound weakness 3.5 years prior. It had, she often rationalized in her quietest moments, begun innocently enough. David's demanding role at TechWave Innovations frequently extended into endlessly late nights, gradually transforming their once vibrant marriage into a succession of hurried goodbyes and solitary, cold dinners. Sophia began to feel like an ethereal presence in her own home, invisible and deeply unappreciated. Seeking solace, she discovered tranquil flow yoga in downtown Seabrook, finding momentary escape in the discipline of downward dogs and the calming rhythm of deep breaths. There, she met Noah, the studio's new, charismatic instructor whose warm smile and attentive ear offered an unexpected balm. A recent transplant from the bustling metropolis of San Francisco, Noah's classes quickly became Sophia's cherished sanctuary. He listened intently to her burgeoning frustrations over post-class smoothies at the studio's cafe, making her feel seen and valued in a way David hadn't in months. What began as a seemingly harmless flirtation subtly escalated during a particularly stormy week when David, citing yet another pressing deadline, canceled their anniversary dinner. One evening, after a private yoga session, Noah extended an invitation for coffee at a quaint, moonlit beachside bistro. Coffee, however, soon morphed into wine, and then into a night of impulsive passion at his rented cottage, where the rhythmic crash of waves echoed their recklessness. It was an act utterly antithetical to Sophia's meticulously planned and controlled life. Weeks later, a positive pregnancy test plunged Sophia into a visceral panic. Upon hearing the news, Noah, too, succumbed to a similar terror. "This wasn't part of the plan," he stammered, his voice thick with regret over the phone. The very next day, he blocked her number, abruptly quit the studio, and vanished back to San Francisco, leaving Sophia to navigate the daunting consequences utterly alone. Meanwhile, David, keenly sensing the deepening rift in their marriage, had begun a concerted effort to make amends. He consciously scaled back his work hours, surprised her with spontaneous weekend getaways to the nearby wine country, and skillfully reignited the fading spark between them. The timing of the conception, so coincidentally close to their marital reconciliation, allowed Sophia to desperately convince herself that the baby could, in fact, be David's. By the time a discreet prenatal test unequivocally confirmed otherwise, Sophia was already 5 months along, her belly gently rounding beneath the soft folds of her flowy maternity dresses. David, meanwhile, was ecstatic, painting the nursery in soft pastels and assembling the crib with an almost boyish enthusiasm. "Our little miracle," he would call the baby, his hand resting protectively on her stomach. How could she possibly shatter such profound joy? How could she deliberately destroy the beautiful family they were so carefully building? And so, Sophia buried the truth, layer by insidious layer, like sand relentlessly covering a long-lost treasure or an unstoppable avalanche concealing everything in its path. The initial 3 years of Olivia's life unfolded as a delicate, agonizing dance of deception. Sophia watched, almost as an outsider, as David wholeheartedly transformed into the quintessential ideal father, waking at dawn for bottle feedings, reading elaborate bedtime stories with animated voices, and cheering Olivia's first wobbly steps across their sunlit living room. Olivia, in turn, utterly adored him, toddling after him with chubby arms outstretched, her sweet, lisping voice calling out, "Dada." They even shared matching freckles dusted across their noses, a delightful coincidence that often fueled family jokes during holiday gatherings. "She's got your spirit, David," his mother would often remark during visits from their inland hometown of Willow Creek. Yet, Sophia, burdened by her secret, couldn't help but see the haunting echoes of Noah in Olivia's features, the subtle curve of her chin, the particular way her eyes crinkled when she laughed. Each cherished milestone, from Olivia's first backyard birthday party, with balloons bobbing in the ocean breeze, to her enrollment at Seabrook Sprouts Preschool and the idyllic family vacations to the redwood forest up north, amplified Sophia's pervasive guilt. In a desperate attempt to compensate, Sophia overcompensated furiously, baking David's favorite chocolate chip muffins every Sunday, initiating intimate evenings under the stars on their deck, and planning elaborate surprise picnics at Overlook Point Park. Despite her efforts, the wall of lies grew inexorably taller. David, ever perceptive, began to notice her underlying restlessness. "Everything okay, Soph?" he'd ask, his brow furrowing with concern as they sipped coffee in the kitchen. She would merely smile, deflecting his gaze with a quick, practiced kiss. Her best friend, Chloe, a graphic designer living across town, had strongly urged her to maintain the secrecy. "What good would spilling it do now? You'd blow up your perfect life for nothing." Sophia's mother, Margaret, visiting from Maplewood, had echoed this sentiment with a comforting yet firm tone. "You're a good mom, dear. Don't be selfish. Think of Olivia." But despite the external assurances, the dreams relentlessly haunted Sophia. Nightmares of a chaotic hospital emergency room, where incompatible blood types revealed the stark truth, or a casual ancestry kit, innocently opened at a boisterous family reunion, shattering her carefully constructed world. In one particularly recurring vision, David stared at her with an expression of profound betrayal, deep lines etched into his face, whispering the chilling word, "monster." The knot in her stomach tightened unbearably during mundane, everyday moments, like when David's father proudly boasted at a barbecue about Olivia inheriting the family's athleticism, or when relatives compared baby photos, adamantly insisting Olivia was David's spitting image. Lately, the meticulously crafted facade began to crack under the strain. At Olivia's third birthday bash in their sun-drenched garden, surrounded by the joyful cacophony of laughing children and the savory scent of grilled burgers, David's sister effused, "She looks exactly like David at that age." Sophia, gripped by a sudden, overwhelming panic, excused herself to the bathroom, hyperventilating uncontrollably over the sink. The room seemed to spin around her, heavy with the oppressive weight of unspoken words. Then came the fateful zoo day. David, making a rare exception, took the day off work. They wandered the winding paths of Seabrook Wildlife Park, Olivia perched happily on his shoulders, pointing excitedly at a giraffe's impossibly long neck silhouetted against the sky. "Look, Daddy, tall like you," she squealed with unbridled delight. David's face glowed with pure, unadulterated contentment, the sun casting golden highlights in his hair. In that very moment, a thunderous voice roared in Sophia's head. He deserves the truth. Honesty, she desperately convinced herself, would finally cleanse the poison from her soul, allowing them to rebuild their bond on much firmer ground. David loved Olivia fiercely, she reasoned. Surely that profound love would be enough to bridge the chasm. That night, after tucking Olivia into her canopy bed, adorned with twinkling fairy lights, Sophia led David to the living room couch. The room felt oppressively quiet, the only discernible sound the distant, rhythmic crash of waves against the shore. "David, I need to talk," she began, her voice a fragile tremor. He sat expectantly, his hand instinctively reaching for hers, a gesture that twisted a fresh knife in her gut. "Olivia, she's not yours." Time itself seemed to freeze. David's expression shifted with a chilling rapidity, like storm clouds gathering on a clear horizon. Confusion furrowed his brow, then disbelief widened his eyes, and finally, a profound horror drained all color from his face. Sophia, now a torrent of tears, rushed on, recounting the yoga studio affair with Noah, a brief, devastating lapse during their rough patch, and how Noah had simply fled when confronted with the news. "I wanted to confess so many times, but you were so thrilled about the baby. I was terrified of losing you both." David sat utterly still, like a statue carved from ice, silent tears carving twin paths down his cheeks. There was no outburst, no rage, just a profound, echoing silence that pierced Sophia far deeper than any scream could have. "She's still yours," she pleaded, grasping at his arm. "You've raised her and loved her. That's what matters." He pulled away gently, yet with an undeniable firmness, standing to retrieve his coat from the hall closet. "David, please," Sophia sobbed, following him. "We can work through this. Think of Olivia. She needs you." At the door, he finally turned, his eyes hollow voids, devoid of any warmth. 3 years, Sophia, every day a lie. Then he was gone. The door clicked shut with a chilling finality, like a gavel delivering a verdict. Sophia collapsed against the wall, her carefully constructed world fracturing into irreparable pieces. She bombarded his phone with frantic calls and texts. "I'm sorry. Come back. We need you." But by morning, he had blocked her number. Desperation clawed at her, a raw, animalistic fear. She clung to the delusional hope that he would eventually return after cooling off, incapable of abandoning the daughter he had cherished so fiercely. Olivia woke asking for Daddy, her tiny face etched with confusion. "He's on a work trip, sweetie," Sophia lied, the words tasting like acrid ash in her mouth. She called her mother, Margaret, who arrived within the hour, enveloping Sophia in a hug scented faintly with lavender. "He'll come around, honey. A real man doesn't walk away from his child." Sarah, Sophia's younger sister and a teacher in Maplewood, also showed up, armed with bagels and practical empathy. "I saw David at his office. He looked wrecked. Give him time." But time, far from healing, only deepened the agonizing rift. Mutual friends reported David had retreated to his parents' home in Riverdale, attempting to process the devastating news. Sophia's attempts to rationalize her actions grew increasingly frantic. Asterisk, it was one mistake, followed by a series of choices to protect our family. Asterisk, yet, during sleepless nights, staring at the empty side of the bed, an insidious doubt began to creep in. 5 days later, divorce papers arrived via certified mail, crisp, impersonal, and devastating. David, with chilling efficiency, had moved out overnight, emptying his closet while she slept, and promptly hired a top family lawyer from Seabrook's most prestigious firm. The sheer speed and calculation of his actions stung like salt in an open wound. How could he? Sophia wailed to Margaret and Sarah over tea in the kitchen. Margaret, her voice stern and resolute, dialed David directly. "Family isn't blood, David. You've been her dad. Step up." He hung up midway through her impassioned plea. Sarah emailed a heartfelt plea of her own. "Olivia will be scarred without you. Don't let anger destroy her." There was no reply. His parents, when contacted, were curt and dismissive. David needs space from toxicity. Toxicity, Sophia thought, indignation flaring within her. "I was honest. Finally." Alicia, another close friend, and her husband Michael offered less comfort. Over a tearful call, Alicia hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Sophomore, what did you expect? You deceived him for years. That's heavy." Sophia abruptly ended the call, feeling a profound sense of betrayal and utter numbness. Olivia's insistent questions only intensified. "Where's Daddy?" Tantrums erupted, her small fists pounding the floor in frustration. Sophia, desperate, borrowed a neighbor's phone to reach David directly. Why abandon her? She's innocent. His response was measured, chillingly calm. Not without my lawyer. Then came a bombshell that detonated her remaining composure. I already knew from the blood screening during her tonsil surgery months ago. I had suspicions before, but that confirmed it. Sophia's world tilted precariously on its axis. You knew and said nothing. I was planning how to confront you, he admitted, his voice devoid of emotion. I loved her regardless, arranging to stay in her life. But your confession, the lies were too much. Rage, hot and bitter, boiled within Sophia. His secret testing felt like an unbearable betrayal in its own right. But he ended the call, leaving her reeling. Margaret, undeterred, left a fiery voicemail on David's phone. Man up, David. Love isn't erased by hurt. The very next day, a restraining order arrived, citing family harassment. Sophia stared blankly at the document, while the sheriff's deputy shifted uncomfortably on her porch. Villain me? He's the one walking away. Weeks dragged into a hazy blur of isolation. Sophia, driven by a desperate hope, cornered David at their old haunt, the seaside cafe, after prying his schedule from a sympathetic coworker. Armed with photo albums, videos of Olivia's heartbroken pleas, and her beloved teddy bear, she claimed their familiar corner booth overlooking the harbor. When David entered, his stride faltered momentarily upon seeing her, but he approached with a rigid posture. 10 minutes, he stated, remaining standing, his voice flat. Olivia cries for you nightly, Sophia urged, sliding the photo albums forward across the table. He glanced away, his gaze fixed on the distant waves. I've consulted a therapist for the transition. My lawyer set visitations. Visitations? You're her dad? Not biologically, you clarified that. Apologies tumbled out of Sophia, a desperate, incoherent rush. She offered counseling, complete transparency, and unending love. He finally sat, his eyes distant and unreadable. I'm not angry, just done. I love Olivia, but she reminds me of your deceit. Staying means being tied to you for years. I can't punish her. I will support her financially, visit consistently, and not abandon her. The full, crushing weight of his decision became starkly apparent, underscoring its absolute finality. He then revealed that virtually everyone in their circle already knew about the paternity and the years of manipulation. Her friend's sudden silence, the ghosting by even her college pal, Ashley, now made agonizing sense. David listed the numerous missed opportunities for her to confess, each jab landing like a physical blow. Pre-marriage, the pregnancy decision, the birth certificate, and even the tonsil surgery. Did you love me? Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible. Yes, that's why it hurts. As he turned to leave, Sophia clung to a fragile thread of hope. Biology isn't everything. You're right, he agreed, pausing at the exit. But honesty is goodbye. 6 months post-separation, Sophia's meticulously ordered life had unraveled like a frayed rope. Once the vibrant social hub, hosting wine tastings in her lush garden, leading the Seabrook Book Club, and coordinating popular beach cleanups, her invitations ceased entirely. Her texts went unanswered, and passive-aggressive social media comments, subtly hinting at hidden truths, stung deeply. Pictures don't tell the whole story, one read. At Olivia's preschool, whispers followed Sophia during drop-offs. One mother, with a falsely sweet smile, queried, "Is David still involved?" Sarah, her sister, had also begun to distance herself. Therapy might help you understand your choices, she'd suggested, her tone laced with concern. Even Margaret, her mother, had begun to question, why not confess sooner? Sophia's work suffered significantly. A highly anticipated promotion at Coastal Marketing slipped away amid emotional lapses and undeniable distractions. David, according to his polished LinkedIn updates, appeared to be thriving, his career soaring. The yoga studio, once her sanctuary, became untenable. Noah had surprisingly returned to Seabrook and had, somehow, connected with David. Pitying glances from other members prompted Sophia to cancel her classes altogether. The charming two-story home, a central pillar of her former life, was sold according to the terms of her prenup. Sophia moved into a cramped, mildew-scented apartment in Seabrook's older district, its distant sea salt smell doing little to mask the mustiness. Rent strained her budget, and looming preschool fees felt like an insurmountable burden. Olivia's weekends with David returned her buzzing with cheerful updates. Daddy's new house has a puppy. We baked with Miss Natalie. Natalie, David's new girlfriend, a compassionate therapist who volunteered at animal rescues, seemed impossibly perfect. Sophia's jealousy simmered, a slow burn, as Olivia raved about new braids and delicious cookies. A year on, the consequences of Sophia's choices compounded exponentially. Sophia attended David and Natalie's wedding indirectly, dropping Olivia off for flower girl duties at the elegant cliffside venue. Watching Natalie bond effortlessly with Olivia, giggling over dresses and practicing paddle tosses, felt like 1,000 daggers twisting in Sophia's heart. David's speech vaguely thanked Olivia's mother, a subtext entirely lost on the oblivious guests. Professionally, a dream job at Horizon Ads evaporated after references, inevitably tied to David's influential circle, flagged transparency issues. The courts, favoring David's stable home environment, granted him primary custody. Sophia became the weekend parent, their strained handoffs conducted under Olivia's watchful, often confused, eyes. Noah reemerged, explaining he hadn't ghosted her by choice. Sophia, in her initial panic, had blocked him post-pregnancy. Now, Noah and David co-parented amicably, taking Olivia on shared outings, a bizarre and painful irony for Sophia. Family gatherings turned irrevocably awkward, relatives murmuring about accountability. Margaret, softened by Sophia's visible pain, pushed therapy relentlessly. On lonely nights, Sophia scrolled through old photos, wine glass in hand, reflecting that her courageous confession had, in reality, detonated everything. Dating was impossible, the town gossip a suffocating shroud. Then, Olivia's innocent query sealed Sophia's self-awareness. Mommy, why is Daddy's last name different? It's complicated, sweetie. Daddy says truth matters, even when it's hard. In that moment, Sophia realized with a crushing clarity that she had become the cautionary tale in her daughter's life. She was the liar who had, through her own actions, lost it all. Yet, in quiet moments by her apartment window, watching the relentless waves crash against the shore, Sophia glimpsed the faint stirrings of growth. Therapy sessions, initially met with fierce resistance, slowly began to unearth deeply ingrained patterns, a profound fear of abandonment stemming from her own fractured childhood, and an overpowering need for control that had long masked her vulnerability. She began volunteering at the local animal shelter, finding unexpected solace in helping stray animals, gently nurturing her own lost and neglected self in the process. Reconciliation with Sarah came slowly, tentatively, over coffee. I messed up, sis, but I'm trying. Alicia reached out tentatively as well, bridges slowly mending. Margaret, her mother, noticeably softened. Proud you're finally facing it. Olivia, remarkably, thrived. Her world had expanded to encompass 2 dads and a loving stepmom. Sophia's visits focused on quality time, long beach walks, engaging story time, and increasingly honest, open conversations. Mommy made mistakes, she admitted one evening, Olivia's head resting gently on her lap. But I love you always. David's formidable wall of resolve softened, ever so slightly. Civil emails about schedules gradually evolved to include shared photos of Olivia. No romance rekindled, but a blossoming co-parenting respect began to take root. 2 years post-confession, Sophia stood on her apartment balcony, the wind howling off the ocean. The oppressive weight of secrets had finally lifted from her shoulders, replaced by a hard-won wisdom. The cost of truth had been undeniably steep, but in the ruins of her old life lay the groundwork for rebuilding a stronger, far more authentic existence. Seabrook's boundless horizons stretched endlessly before her, now promising, not an ending, but new beginnings.